we're in on the overhead. That's Ari Lax on the front table on your left. That's Eric Froehlich on the right. And we've got a pretty interesting matchup here, Jack.
Yeah, we're seeing a black-green poison deck played by Ari against the Jund deck played by Froehlich. Jund, full of removal spells, should be kind of an ideal matchup. On the other hand, Jund sometimes takes a little bit to get off the ground. This Infect deck from Ari's side looks like it can kill you very fast.
Well, you got 1 drops, you got 2 drops, you got 3 drops. You just run them out there, and it's effectively making your opponent's life total 10 instead of 20.
Well, exactly. And we got to remember, you see the Pendelhaven there can make the Glistener Elf a 2/3. Infect basically means your opponent starts at 10, not 20. So the deck plays early threats, and you see the Exalted trigger from Noble Hierarch, just ways to make those threats bigger temporarily with effects like Giant Growth, Groundswell, Might of Old Krosa. The Jund deck is just going to be playing threats, trying to remove them from the ground and grind the opponent out.
Yep. You go to 2 Infect.
So Ifro has played Swamp and Deathrite Shaman. Ari attacks with the Exalted trigger on the Elf. So 2 poison counters already for Eric Froehlich.
Right, and you've got to be a little bit worried if you're sitting in Ifro's seat. You know, before you even untap for your second turn, you're already basically a fifth of the way dead. And there's some tricks that can go on. Pendelhaven with the Exalted trigger on the stack can make that Glistener Elf into quite a threat. Ifro probably thought with a 1/2 he'd be able to stop him, but Exalted very powerful with an effect, it turns out.
Well, once we, and then of course we see the
go down to
Inkmoth Nexus up at the top. So even once all the creatures get killed,
right,
he can just come across with that, and maybe even a Giant Growth, and boom, you're done.
Well, and we see a Giant Growth, in fact, in Ari's hand. Thoughtseize from Ifro right now. He can take either the Giant Growth or the Plague Stinger. Ari, not a whole lot in his hand right now, but his board pretty threatening, can end the game in just a few turns. So
what do you take here if you're Ifro?
I think you probably take the Giant Growth. You don't want to get combo killed, and Lax already has 2 threats, so I don't think the Plague Stinger is going to matter that much. And that's exactly what we see.
Yep. All right, Ifro plays the Marsh Flats, cracks it. He's going to go.
You're on the 15?
Yes. Fetch the Overgrown Tomb. Haven't quite seen whether he's going to put the play tapped or untapped just yet. I have a feeling if he's doing it on this turn, he's probably putting it untapped. I mean, damage doesn't mean anything to Ifro, right?
That's the thing, yeah. Unless Ari was going to win with Noble Hierarch attacks, he can take 2 from Thoughtseize, he can take 2 from Overgrown Tomb. And we see a Tarmogoyf come down. Going to be hard for Ari to get through that, but Inkmoth Nexus can fly right over the top if that's what his plan is.
And remember, Infect creatures deal their damage in -1 counters to the creatures, so that Tarmogoyf can't just chump block the rest of the day.
That's a good point. Yet another reason Exalted is so, man, we see the trick with Pendelhaven with the ability on the stack. So very quickly, Ifro going, I think, up to what, 5 poison?
5 poison counters. From the back table, we heard Brad Nelson mulligan to 3 in game 1.
Mulligan to 3.
And just scooped the game 1.
Huh.
Then quickly lost game 2 to Olirade. So Olirade's already through to it. 2-0.
So the match is over, and we're on the 3rd turn of this game. This modern format is amazing.
All right, we see Ifro has the Liliana in his hand there. Jund really good at killing creatures, but he's got to come back. He's got to get, he's got to get the dudes and the Inkmoth Nexus.
Well, he's got to do it quickly, because 5 poison, that's just 2 more attacks from Ari, and no real clear way to deal with Inkmoth Nexus right now. None of the ground guys are able to block it. And Liliana, I think Ari can safely throw away Glistener Elf without having to care too much. You also see an Apostle's Blessing in his hand that can push him through the ground forces if he needs to. But right now, that Noble Hierarch doing a lot of work. Now, we do see a Liliana come out.
Sacrifice a creature.
Sack a dude, says Ifro. Yep, and Glistener Elf is gone.
Without even having to think too much about it, Ari seems like he kind of knew what he wanted to do. Yeah, exactly.
You mind if I read this real fast?
Ari reading the Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman has 3 different abilities, kind of a complicated card.
That's a lot of text.
Not a lot of which really does all that much for him right now.
I go to 16.
The thing about the Infect deck, it only does one thing, but it does it very well, and it's actually a little bit more resilient than it would seem like at first glance. With cards like Apostle's Blessing, with cards like Inkmoth Nexus, it's pretty hard to kill unless you have mana untapped on the Infect player's turn.
Exalted. You go to 8 Infect.
There's another Inkmoth Nexus, which fuels the first one.
Go
Then Pendelhaven pumps it up, and we get the Exalted trigger. So Ifro at 8 poison counters. The thing is, the poison counters don't go away. You know, like life loss, you can mitigate with Kitchen Finks or something. But Infect, you're just
exactly.
dead.
You see the Deathrite Shaman, perfectly capable of gaining life, but certainly doesn't do anything against the Infect. And I mean, you know, just the lowly 1/1 Inkmoth Nexus getting pumped up. Ifro really needs to mount some defense here. That's going to be all she wrote.
All she wrote. If he doesn't, well, he doesn't have any instant creature kill in his hand that I see.
Yeah, I think he's got a Lightning Bolt, but
Does
he
he
needs
down the
red
bottom there?
mana for that. Yeah, I think that's what that card
Everybody
is.
discards card.
We see
Fetch land, and didn't see what Ari threw away.
Yeah, it would be the Plague Stinger from earlier that Ari can't even cast, so he's not too upset about that. Ifro trying to figure out how to...
He's kind of come across with the Tarmogoyf.
Creature, instant, sorcery, land 4.
So
Go to 12.
Ari doing a nice count of the 4 things that are types of cards in their graveyard. So Tarmogoyf does 4. Ari goes to 12. Ifro follows with
Okay, Noble Hierarch.
Abrupt Decay,
Dead.
taking care of the Noble Hierarch.
Here.
Then he's going to play a
Cards in?
red source.
One. Your turn.
So he's got Lightning Bolt up. Now Ari has the Apostle's Blessing. He needs that 5th land to activate both of his
Sure.
Inkmoth
8
Nexus
Correct.
and attack. So if he just plays the land, activates his cards, this should be game over unless something totally unexpected happens.
Here
Right
they
now.
come.
Animate
Yep.
both.
Animate
Tap.
both. Here we
That's
come.
what's happening.
Okay.
Eric says, sure. Now,
Oh,
cagey play by Ifro there, knowing that, well, he's dead because Ari can
So the third
just
time I
activate
played this
Pendelhaven
match,
on
right.
one that doesn't get killed.
Right. So he doesn't. Yeah,
He
the
doesn't
Apostle's
show
Blessing
that-
doesn't even matter.
he doesn't
just
show the bolt.
activates it on the other one.
He knows.
Yep.
He knows he's dead. All right. So game 1 to Ari Lax over Eric Froehlich. What are we going to see from the sideboard from these guys?
All right, so out of Ari's deck, I think he wants to bring in both Thoughtseize and Spellskite. Thoughtseize to kind of get rid of some of the Jund deck's 2-for-1s. Spellskite to eat some of this removal that the Jund deck is full of. From the Jund side, I think you're going to want Jund Charm to be able to wipe the board at instant speed. Beyond that, though, kind of hard to say. It's possible you'd want Ancient Grudge for those Inkmoth Nexuses. On the other hand, if your opponent gets a Glistener Elf draw or a Blighted Agent draw, not a terribly exciting card. We see Fulminator Mage, again, more of the same thing, good against the Nexus, not really good against anything else. And Pyroclasm and Olivia Voldaren, both cards that you probably want. If you untap with Olivia, I can't imagine winning with the
anything.
Infect deck. I think we've...
If you're a gamer, you're sure to have an opinion. Share your thoughts about Magic the Gathering event coverage by taking part in a brief online survey. Visit wizards.com/ProTour survey to give us your feedback. And we also hear from one of the back matches that Gaudenis Vidigoris has gone up game 1 on Dave Shields.
Now, I was looking at Ari's deck. I thought it was a black-green deck. Turns out it's black-blue-green, but it's basically a mono-green deck, splashing for 2-mana Infect threats and Blighted Agent and Plague Stinger. So kind of a unique creation, but certainly worked in game 1.
Does the blue, I mean, this is sort of an unusual build, right?
Yeah.
So does the blue just cause the other player to think that there might be mana leaks that he's got to play around, or remand, or anything like that?
Oh, I think so. I mean, in a tournament like this where your opponent doesn't know your deck list, you can get a lot of value out of just strategically leaving your blue mana untapped. I mean, you know, maybe this is too slick. You'd have to know what you're playing against, but I could see just like playing a Breeding Pool untapped on turn 2 and passing. I mean, why would you do that unless you had a 2-mana counter spell? So I definitely feel like you could get some advantage that way, play a little bit of
I guess
mind
8 and
games with your
7 both
opponent.
go into 60, so I'd have hit 4 on the same, so I can actually figure out how many cards are in my deck. Not get game losses for being an idiot. I was like gonna 8 pile shuffle and like then realized that like if I 8 pile shuffle, I had no idea like what number my count should end on to like actually figure out how many cards are in my deck.
So you're
I mean, I've definitely like in playtesting like gone to play a game and like 2 games deep into playtesting like because I count like that, just like realized my deck is like 14 cards short.
That's a problem to have when you're practicing.
It's tough.
Well, I mean, we noticed both players did the put the full sideboard in the deck, shuffle it, and then take 15
I
out.
don't want to risk any game losses.
And like I was saying, don't want to risk any game losses. You don't want to present an illegal deck here. Those are the kind of things that you don't want to beat yourself.
Oh, exactly. Oh, and that's happened to me in events before, just for really dumb reasons. It's hard enough to defeat your opponents. Last thing you want to do is defeat yourself by making a careless error. Another advantage of sideboarding like that, of shuffling them all in, is just that you aren't telling your opponent how many cards you're bringing in and taking out.
You have to know your deck really well, though. If you know your deck, and you have to know your sideboard plan. It's the deck you just picked up today. That's a little trickier.
No, for sure. And you've got to make sure you know your exact list. A lot of sideboards have just, the third copy of this, the fourth copy of that. If you're just sort of fanning through it, you might be like, oh, what's in my sideboard?
Right.
Presenting a illegal deck, really good way to lose a game.
A little normal banter between Pro Tour players. Ari asked Efro if you played against Sweet.
This is my third John matchup. I played against Burn, and I played against Blue-Red Control. It was actually really sick. He just main deck Blood Moon people.
Yeah, we had a lot of decks like that in testing.
Now, we've seen, I don't know how much the earlier coverage you were watching, we saw Kenji, Samura, main deck, Blood Moon, take a Valkyrie deck right out of the field.
No, I absolutely love it. My early PTQ days, I sort of had a reputation for cards like Chalice of the Void, cards like Blood Moon, cards like Back to Basics. But a lot of time people just forget they're there. You cast a spell, it costs 3 mana, it just wins the game by itself.
It's pretty embarrassing. My opponent had Drew of 4, so he could have Ancient Guard as my champion because of it.
All right. So we're going to game 2. Both players looking at their openers. We see that Olivia Valdarin from Efro, but does he not have?
Okay.
I think he has 2 mana for a Dark Confidant and Tarmogoyf. A really good hand in many circumstances. We see Ari mulling now. But you really want to have some interaction with the Jund deck against a deck like this. So I'm not sure, you don't just want to play threats, or you can get killed by the Nexuses and the Giant Growths. So I feel like the Jund deck wants a hand full of Lightning Bolts, Jund Charms, Pyroclasms, but it's hard to mulligan a hand with turn 2 Dark Confidant and probably your strongest individual threat in Olivia.
We hear from sideline reporter Rashad Miller that Frank Karsten has taken game 1 from Su Ching Kuo with his sweet mono red deck.
His Singleton mono red
That's right.
deck.
His Singleton mono red deck.
All one-ofs. With Frank, it was kind of funny. I saw him match 1, and he kind of just destroyed his opponent in short order. And I'm like, hey, I'd love to do a feature on your deck. And he's like, really? And then I learned it was a Highlander deck, but all the cards, very reasonable, powerful cards. So just goes to show.
Well, that's why the guy's in the Hall of Fame. All right, so Ari Lax going to 6 here on his mulligan. Sees a couple of land, one of which is Pendelhaven. Keeps it, there's a Noble Hierarch.
Yeah, really kind of excellent hand for Ari. You're going to have a turn 1 Noble Hierarch. You have Inkmoth Nexus, which won him that first game. Again, you can make your 1/1s up into 3/3s without having to exert any resources or exhaust yourself. So pretty good 6-card hand for Ari.
Zero infect.
Zero.
Right, so we see Noble Hierarch up on your screen. Produces mana.
Beat my burn opponent with damage.
Has Exalted.
Can actually cast the Blighted Agent.
That's right.
Hilariously, even though it's probably not principally used for that, but nice to have a little bit of extra consistency.
So we see Efro crack the fetch land in order to get the Blood Crypt.
Doesn't look to have any red spells in his hand besides Olivia right now, but he might in fact draw one. See him draw yet another sack land on Marsh Flats.
Okay.
There he goes. Turn 2, Dark Confidant, the very, very sexy promo for Judge Foil 1.
I was saying, Efro has some nice physical cards over there with some, beta lands, foil Dark Confidants.
There is the Blood Agent.
With Pendelhaven up there to protect it.
15? Okay. We're getting somewhere.
Okay. Well, I mean, against this Infect deck, again, your life total doesn't really matter so much.
No.
So Dark Confidant away.
Yeah, I mean, the only way it's going to matter is if you keep hitting 4s on Dark Confidant and just actually deal yourself 20. It does stop some of your sacklands and some of your thought seizes, but by and large, all that doesn't really matter a whole lot.
All right, there's an Inquisition.
pretty loaded grip from Ari. We see Rancor, Vines of Vastwood, Glistener Elf. Pretty hard decision there whether to take Rancor or Vines. Vines sort of a combo kill. Rancor good turn after turn. A really tough decision for Ifro right here.
Which one does that kill take?
I think you take the Rancor. You don't really have a good way to brick wall it right now. And again, the Inkmoth Nexus is going to hit you every turn. So.
And it's not going to cast. It's not going to cost Ari too much to just keep recasting that Rancor even onto the Inkmoth Nexus.
Exactly.
Even if it falls off the end of the turn, it's like, well, I get it back. Pay 1 for it the next turn.
Exactly. Yeah, I can do that again. So I think you probably take Rancor here, but Vines, I mean, you see Ifro doing the math. I mean, you've got to respect that card because, I mean, it can like just straight up end games.
Yeah, that's 4 more poison counters, and you only get 10.
Right, and it also, it gives your creature hexproof, I think. So, it can
really
counterspell the removal spells out of the Jund deck, can obviously counter, not just the burn spells, the Lightning Bolt, the Pyroclasm, but also things like Abrupt Decay.
So he does indeed take the Rancor out of his deck. And now he's got the knowledge to play with that Vines of Vastwood. Maybe he uses it on his own turn. He bolts creature on his own turn, hoping that Ari will waste, if you will, the 4. I mean, he saved himself 4 poison counters by doing it like that.
And, I mean, he's got Olivia in his hand, so, I mean, he can definitely wipe the board clean if he has enough time, but he's certainly not going to be able to block that Blighted Agent. And the Pendlehaven and the Noble Hire are going to be 3 damage this turn anyway, so it's going to be a pretty tough race, that is for sure.
So Ifro cracking another fetch, get the swamp out of it, and looking to drop another Dark Confidant. We saw this in a game earlier, and it worked out.
Ari's certainly winning the damage race right now, despite not dealing any damage. But I have a feeling that might turn around in short order.
Is one of these maybe? Well, the Inkmoth Nexus flies, so.
Right. I mean, I think you definitely want to go ahead and play that Nexus. Get a Glistener Elf out. I think if you're Ari, you just want to pump your Blighted Agent and attack. And just add the Nexuses to the ground to add a little bit of resilience.
All right, Ari Lax doing a little bit of math in his head here, seeing which direction he wants to go.
Well, that's the crazy thing about this deck is that your opponent is basically like always on the verge of death.
Okay.
Exalted.
So 3. He's a 3.
And that's representing lethal damage next turn, as crazy as that is to think about. Ifro cannot afford to tap out this turn unless he has a removal spell or that Blighted Agent's off the board, because he knows about the Vines of Vastwood. 3 damage off the attack with the Pendlehaven, plus 1 more or 4 more with the Vines. That's game over.
Infect deck can indeed kill relatively quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. I mean, we're seeing multiple ways to take advantage of the Infect engine in this format, whether it's with Tainted Strike plus a Kiln Fiend, whether it's this deck. Turns out when your opponent's at 10 instead of 20, there's a lot of ways to abuse that.
Right. So he plays the Overgrown Tune in tapped. Ifro untaps. Their first reveal is a Lightning Bolt.
That is exactly what Ifro wants right here. Get that Blighted Agent off the table.
Second reveal is a Jund Charm.
Wow. Oh, the Jund Charm, absolutely devastating right now. It would get rid of his 2 Bobs, but it would also wipe Ari's board.
Yeah, he needs another red source to cast both Jund Charm and Lightning Bolt. So he can Jund Charm, wait for Ari to try to save something, and then bolt it.
Right. I mean, you obviously, like Ari still has an Inkmoth Nexus to play defense with, so even if you cleared the board, you would want a mana up to protect against the Inkmoth Nexus.
Not a lot of cards.
It's not a lot of cards. Ifro with a full grip. Really, if he can wipe the board right now or survive this the next 1 or 2 attacks, he's really got a lot of inevitability. As the game goes longer, he's just more and more likely to win.
Okay, Ifro at 10 life and 3 poison counters. Again, the life isn't so significant unless he gets really unlucky with a couple of Dark Confidant triggers.
You might just be able to end the game by putting Vines of Vastwood on Noble Hierarch and just
getting in there.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, regular damage is not too unattractive. Especially with the Verdant Catacombs.
Yep, there's the fetch land, so he can go get a red source if he needs, and both Dark Confidant comes in. Ari Lax goes to 16.
So Olivia, ordinarily a very attractive play here, but Ifro knows for a fact that if he does that, he's dead. So he's got a lot of options right now.
So Jun Charm.
2 damage.
And that's exactly what we see. You know, it doesn't matter that the competence die. They've already drawn their cards. He wants to get all of Ari's threats off the table. Ari's going to attack with that Inkmoth Nexus, very likely. Ifro can bolt it. Probably doesn't want to bolt it right away, or he just is begging to get hit with Vines of Vastwood, but he certainly is able to do that at the end of the turn.
Right, there's another Inkmoth Nexus for Ari Lax.
So the Inkmoth attacking for 1, potentially 2 with the Pendulum.
Activate. Attack. And how many cards in hand?
5.
5.
Pump.
So is Ifro going to be a cool character and just take the 2 poison counters?
Yeah.
Looks like he is.
All right, and that's a little bit risky of a play because Vines of Vastwood actually. Oh no! Which side is which on Vines? Do you get +4/+4 for a single mana, or is that just for 2 mana? Oh, okay. So right, exactly. A little bit of a risky move tapping the Pendelhaven because you then lose the ability to deal 4 more extra damage on the attack because that requires 2 green
being
mana.
kicked, right?
Exactly, but. Ifro opting to play a little conservatively, and Ari as well, only attacking for 2. No lightning bolt action happening at the end of the turn.
So Ifro getting an overgrown tomb with his fetch lands, sending him down to 9. He's got 5 poison counters. Ari Lax at 16 life, and his draw is, I missed that, Zach.
Oh, it's an Ancient Grudge. Devastating Ancient Grudge right now, with Ari's only 2 threats being a pair of Inkmoth Nexus. Ancient Grudge can single-handedly wipe the board right now. We talked about when we were talking about what Ifro would want to side in. Ancient Grudge, very narrow but very powerful in the right situation. See Ifro tap 2 mana for a 3rd Dark Confidant. Continuing the stream of card advantage, and we've really got to say the momentum is shifted to Ifro right now.
Ari Lax can still certainly steal this game.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about the Infect.
There's Noble Hierarch, which means Exalted. All right, Inkmoth Nexus activates.
Exalted.
And getting in for 2 more Infect damage. Ifro trying to decide if he wants to respond to the trigger or if he even wants to worry about that damage at this point.
I think he's got an Ancient Grudge here.
You have 4 cards, or 3 cards still.
3 cards in my hand.
He knows about the Vines, but you're not too upset if you can bait a Vines, without taking 4 damage from it.
Well, especially since he can flash back the Ancient Grudge later on.
Exactly, for a single mana.
There's the Vines.
And that's
You
what
go to 7.
Yep.
So Ifro at 7 poison, which is ordinarily a pretty scary place to be, but with an Ancient Grudge in your graveyard and a Lightning Bolt in your hand, it's a relatively safe 7 poison counters.
If there's such a thing as a safe 7 poison counters. There's the Talmergoyf off the Dark Confidant reveal and a land. He'd have certainly rather those in the other order.
But and that Noble Hierarch, we were joking about it, but it still can attack.
Yep.
So some relevant threats on Ari's side of the board, even without the Nexus.
Dark Confidant gets into the red zone, and here comes the Tarmogoyf.
And leaving up red for Lightning Bolt and the green from the Ancient Grudge. Ari really wants another Vines of Vastwood. I don't think he's holding it. Yeah, we just see Glistener Elf and a Blighted Agent. So still some gas in the tank for Ari.
Looking through Ifro's graveyard.
Trying to ascertain how big that Tarmogoyf is.
Hierarch.
Yeah.
Okay,
Enemy.
Inkmoth Nexus gets activated.
Sure.
Combat.
Darts going in.
Yeah.
Exalted, Exalted.
2 cards.
2 Exalted triggers.
And that is a lethal attack, assuming that Ifro didn't have an answer. Now, of course, Ari knows that Ifro has the Ancient Grudge in the graveyard, but at this point, we just have to see what kind of answer he wants to cast. And Ifro, of course, has to respect the hypothetical Vines and Vastwood, which would end the game right here.
He's going to bolt. He's going to bolt the first multi with the triggers on the stack.
Blighted Agent.
And then cast
Go ahead.
Blighted Agent in his second main phase. We hear that Gaudenus Vitigoris has taken down his match with Dave Shields. He wins 2 games to 0.
So if you're Ephro right now, you have both Olivia and Bloodbraid Elf, so this is going to be a pretty high-impact turn no matter what happens. All the way down to 6 life. Noara can now attack for 2 points of damage. But, you know, very little that Ari can do right now but try to top deck some Vines of Vastwood and hope that nothing bad happens.
He certainly,
Instant
I don't think he
creature,
can
land,
cast
sorcery.
Olivia because then Ari just comes over the top with the Inkmoth Nexus. He's got to save up the 1 green for the Ancient Grudge.
Oh, sure. I mean,
Dark
if
Confidant.
Olivia killed Blighted Agent, Olivia could theoretically just block the Inkmoth Nexus, right?
Theoretically, yeah.
But not obviously what you want to be doing
Right.
with your most powerful card. But Ephro up so many points of card advantage right now. Might even be scared of his own Dark Confidant and kill him.
I was just gonna say that he's got to be a little concerned with the Dark Confidant. But I think Bloodbraid Elf is coming here. Sure, says Ari Lax. Into Tarmogoyf.
I
Oh,
have this, and I drew this.
Yeah.
I got this, and I'm gonna win. So Eric Froehlich takes game 2 from Ari Lax, and we're gonna go to game 3. This is pretty intense Magic.
yeah. No, for sure.
Oh, no, he didn't have it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Okay, so the Ari wins with a Blighted Agent attack. Ephro just had no way to deal with a Blighted Agent.
Right.
He didn't have the 6th land to play Olivia and then
To
ping
get
the
it,
agent.
ping it.
So he needed to hit a removal spell off the Bloodbraid Elf. So his board full of threats, but no way
Couldn't
to
get
deal
there
with the
agent.
unblockable.
Yep.
Wow.
All right. So
This
we'll
matchup's-
issue the correction. Ari Lax
I have no clue actually.
takes down Eric Froehlich 2-0, and it looks like we're going to go to one of the back
Do you play against this
tables.
list?
Well, I don't know what the exact list.
Yeah.
but
Did you play against? There was the Moto list that
Oh,
had
Frank Karsten and Suching Kuo. So we're going to see that singleton deck from Frank Karsten.
I can't wait to see this. I mean, you have to feel like Frank played this deck precisely to be in
There-
feature
there's like a list
matches
floating
like
on
this
Moto
one.
that had Phyrexian
Of course,
Crusaders
Hall
with,
of
like,
Famer
different
Frank
casting
Karsten,
spells
great
and
player
things that you can
regardless of
make,
the
like,
deck that
blue
he's
on
playing.
2, black
For
black on
sure.
3, and like triple green at every point.
Magic Feather Case by Incipio. Let your imagination flow. Keep your iPhone protected from danger while showcasing Magic's awesome imagery, including the most popular planeswalkers and other amazing art. For more information, visit wizards.com/magic merchandise.
All right.
All right.
So we see Frank thinking about something. I think you have to think a lot in a deck that has this many different lines of play available to it.
Well, you gotta think about 40 different cards instead of 10 or 12.
All right. Now, Frank holding Arc Trail against a pair of Kitchen Finks.
Yeah, Mono Red definitely doesn't want to see Kitchen Finks. All right, you see up on your screen the Magic. I mean, the Ranker comes out of Magic 2013, but of course comes from way back in Urza's Hammer.
Urza's Legacy.
Urza's Hammer.
Exactly.
I mean, this is one of the early enchantments that we love. You know, creature enchantments weren't so good in the early days.
Right.
Ranker made them better.
Well, I mean, back when creatures were way worse, relatively speaking, than they are now to the power of spells, Ranker made aggro decks possible. You know, Ranker was a card that made mono green aggro a real deck in times when you could play cards like Yawgmoth's Will and, Tinker and everything else. So, a historically powerful card, and we see it putting to great use in Ari Lax's Infect deck today.
For sure. Well, I mean, the reason it didn't come out in M11 was because of Infect.
Exactly because of Infect. Yeah, we had it in M11 and took it out.
All right, we just saw him scoop it up over there. Maybe Rashad can tell us what happened.
I think Frank probably was on the losing end of the pair of Kitchen Finks.
Versus Kitchen Finks. So, does that mean we're going to go to game 3 here? Okay, we're going to go to game 3. Suching Kuo, reigning World Team Champion, against Frank Karsten, Hall of Famer.
Right, Suching Kuo basically playing the same deck we've seen him play a lot of. He was playing the blue-white, basically invented the blue-white Restoration Angel Geist of Saint Traff deck, switched to robots for the Players' Championship, but is back to the deck that he popularized, is doing pretty well with it so far today here in the modern Pro Tour Return to Ravnica.
All right, there's Frank's deck for you, Zach. There's a lot of ones on there.
Looking at this deck list makes my head hurt, Sheldon.
It's all full.
I'm surprised he was able to get it all on the same sheet. The deck list, ladies and gentlemen at home, it literally says "see other side." I don't know that I have ever turned over a deck list before.
Maybe Battle of Wits.
Yeah, and this is a photocopy, so it's not even on the other side of the deck. This is insane stuff.
There's a good shot of Frank Karsten. There's a good shot of Su-Ching Kuo.
So Su-Ching Kuo, 4 main deck Kitchen Finks in this current iteration of the blue-white deck. We haven't seen that before. We've seen a couple of copies, but probably anticipated a lot of Jund today.
I was going to say, was that a good read of the environment here by Su-Ching?
It was. I'm digging some of these other cards. We have 2 Wall of Omens, again, very good against Jund, very good against some of the aggro decks. 1 Shadow of a Doubt, preventing your opponent from shuffling, a great way to just get your opponent when he or she uses a sack land that are defining this format. And way out of Eric Lauer's Draw Go deck from the mid-late 90s, 1 copy of Whispers of the Muse.
Reprinted, of course, in Time Spiral.
I'm not even going to try to explain that one, Sean.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I mean, that's pretty cool, though. And the core of the deck still Snapcaster Mage, Restoration Angel, Cryptic Command, Remand, Spell Snare, Path to Exile, all of the cards that we've seen for a long time at their utmost effect today.
I mean, certainly, those 2 Vendilion click are reasonably good as well.
Right, and a huge Air Force in this deck. We finally have the second page of Frank Karsten's deck list. Very importantly, 1 copy of Arid Mesa and 1 copy of Shinka the Blood-Soaked Keep.
I know all of you at home are running to gather to look up Shinka the Blood-Soaked Keep. It gives 11 legendary creature first strike, as a matter of fact. Thanks to Tim Willoughby from the text team for bringing all that in.
So basically a strict upgrade of a mountain, except this deck plays both Genju of the Spires and Koth of the Hammer, which can't enchant a Shinka. And the land's legendary, but he only plays 1 copy of them, so I think that kind of gives it. I'm looking for a legend for this to pump, and I can't see. Oh no, sorry, Zozu the Punisher out of the sideboard can get first strike by virtue of the Shinka. There we go. We figured it out.
Is that really the only
That
way?
is exactly what it is.
Zach has not missed anything. It is indeed Zozu the Punisher.
This may be the coolest deck that I have ever seen featured at a feature match in the Pro Tour. And Frank's winning with it. I mean, it's not like this, he just showed up and isn't winning games. He's going to Game 3 against level 8 pro Su-Ching Kuo. I know he won his first match. I mean, it just goes to show you that there are a lot of good red cards you can be playing in this format.
Well, I mean, because they tend to be costed kind of aggressively.
Oh, yeah, of
course.
course.
The amount of damage they do. They don't give you a long game, but they can make it shorter. Frank gives the thumbs up to keep his hand.
And certainly you're not going to be able to play around anything if you're up against a deck like this.
Right. I mean, your read on what he's got is like, I don't know.
Right, we see he has Shrine of Burning Rage, one of the most powerful cards you can have in the format. Grip full of burn spells. He's got a turn 1 Flamekin Harbinger, which Su-Ching Kuo has to pick up and read. It can tutor up Kiln Fiend, maybe, I think. I don't actually know what he's going to get. I have absolutely no idea what elementals even are in the deck. Hellspark Elemental, very nice one. And he's looking at Hellspark Elemental. I think that's got to be what he's going to go get. Kiln Fiend, for all I know, might not actually even be an elemental. Okay, it turns out that it is in fact an elemental. But,
it is an elemental beast, as a matter of fact.
All right. And he's
there it is. There's
staring
a good shot on one of our side monitors.
All right, and he does in fact get the Kiln Fiend, puts it on top of his library with Flamekin Harbinger. Harbinger adding a degree of consistency to the singleton mono red deck. The 39 spell, 21 land Highlander mono red deck.
Outstanding.
Deck building genius and Hall of Famer Frank Karsten.
All right, after all that, Su-Ching has kept his 7. He's going to play a Hallowed Fountain. He's got a Hallowed Fountain and 2 Celestial Colonnades. So he's got a lot of ETB tapped lands starting this game. And he's going to play that one untapped.
taking a couple extra damage so that he can spell snare the Kiln Fiend that he knows Karsten has. On the other end, Karsten has to say, okay, well, why did he take 2 damage against my mono red deck unless he has something? So he probably is going to want to cast a 1-mana spell if he can at all help it.
So Frank battles in.
We see a Pillar of Flame, a Kiln Fiend, and a Shrine of Burning Rage. So anything that Frank casts on this turn is going to be able to get hit with Spell Snare if Quo chooses to do so, or Suching chooses to do so.
So if you're in Frank's seat, do you cast the second most valuable one anyway, get the Spell Snare out? I mean, you can't just do nothing and let the sort of more controlling deck build up mana.
Sure, and he does turn out to cast Kiln Fiend, which is going to get probably Spell Snared. He did have a Magma Jet, so it's not inconceivable that he could just pass the turn, say whatever, Magma Jet, find his 3rd land, and then cast Boggart Ramgang. But, there's a lot of sacrifices if you do that, and you want to bait the Spell Snare anyway so you can resolve your Shrine of Burning Rage.
All right, Celestial Colonnade for Suching Quo. There's the 3rd mountain for Frank Karsten. And here comes the Ramgang.
Right.
It's hasty.
It deploys the Ramgang without really having to think about it too much. Just slams the 3rd land down, gets around the 2nd Spell Snare, and it's going to crash into the red zone for 4 points of damage right now.
Here it comes.
We see the Oust from Suching Quo, not very good against a board full of hasty creatures and creatures with Enter the Battlefield abilities. Also kind of an awkward, I believe that's a Dismember. Another card you aren't really keen to cast against a mono-red burn deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's just life that you don't want to lose.
Right, I mean, you're going to do it if you have to. That the Ramgang's probably going to bite a Dismember, but, Suching Quo at 13 life, not really where you want to be against a deck with cards like Genju of the Spires in it.
Well, 4 mana, or 4 life now is better than 6, 9, 12 over the course of the game.
Right, and now we do see the Ramgang get hit with Oust to take it off the table. Suching Quo trying to save life from the Dismember, doesn't yet cast it. It's getting sort of nickel and dimed by the Flamekin Harbinger. I think we're going to see the Shrine from Frank, which is going to promptly bite a Spell Snare. Suching Quo's 2nd Spell Snare from the other side of the table. Yeah, and that's exactly what happens.
Thinks about it a little bit.
Go. 2.
Again, the best pros, even when the right play's in front of them, they've even set up the right play, they still think about it before they do it. There's no sense in snap calling it. Right. Because you never know what you're going to walk into.
Well, your time's a resource. You've got 50, 55 minutes, I guess, to finish a round. No need to rush to too many decisions as long as you think the game's going to end on time.
All right, Frank Karsten at 23, Suching Quo at 12.
Frank knows he's going to draw a Boggart Ramgang. Restoration Angel being telegraphed from Suching's side. Still, you have to feel like, all right, well, I don't mind casting Ramgang a 2nd time, even if it does get blocked by the 3/4. Wither shrinks Restoration Angel down so far that it's hardly a threat at all.
Correct. There it is. All right, let me see that thing. Let me make sure.
Wither incredibly relevant in this situation. A lot of times the card gets played because it's a 3/3 haste for 3, but definitely has some extra upside as well.
Suching says sure. Battle.
How many cards in hand?
Frank asks how many cards. Suching says 4.
I feel like you probably want to attack with both creatures. I mean, I feel like if you trade your Flamekin Harbinger for 3 extra damage, you've got to be kind of excited about that, right, to be honest.
Well, you're on a clock, and you know that Suching is playing Kitchen Finks.
Right.
So you got to get him down low fast.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, and you have to expect that he doesn't have a Finks in hand, or he would have cast it last turn. So you kind of have to capitalize on an empty board while you can.
There's Restoration Angel, takes out the
Take 1.
Ramgang, shrinks the Angel to a 0.
Go.
Suching Quo at 11, Frank Karsten at 23.
He has top decked a Mendelian Click. Has 2 lands in his hand. There's an island. He's got a Tectonic Edge in his hand. Probably not going to play that until and unless a problematic land comes. But
that's Shinka, the Blood-Soaked Keep. Yes, that was so devastating. We saw. Yes, Su Ching Kuo has Vendilion Click in hand, Celestial Colonnade on the battlefield, Dismember in hand. I think we're going to see a main phase Vendilion Click right now.
I'm going to look at your hand, sir.
See a Pillar of Flame and a Magma Jet. I think you kind of want to take that Magma Jet almost. You're in essence giving him 1 card instead of 2, and you're saving yourself 2 damage. On the other hand, you could just say, all right, none of those are permanents, I'm not going to take anything, but he does in fact decide to take the Magma Jet. Or I thought he did. It looks like he's looking at it again.
The Pillar of Flame, the Pillar of Flame takes care of kitchen things.
That is true.
Because it exiles instead.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, Pillar actually very strong in this particular matchup. But it does look like he took the Magma Jet. Just wanted to deprive Frank of the card selection, given that he's more or less out of threats at this stage of the game. What we see is Shinka.
I'm telling you, that tech edge is coming down.
Yeah, Shinka and a mountain for Frank. So Frank pretty out of gas at this point. The tide's really turned in Su Ching Kuo's favor. On the other end, no good blocks. Flamekin Harbinger is still going to be dealing some damage. Yep.
Yep, he takes it.
So Su Ching down to 10. Game's still theoretically well within Frank's grasp, but he has to be disappointed that he drew 2 lands, and not very many lands in the deck to begin with. So I can't be too excited about that turn of events. He's thinking about whether he wants to use that Pillar of Flame to take care of Vendilion Click before the click starts to hit him. On the other end, at 23 life, he's got a healthy amount of life points to work with, so he might want to use that Pillar of Flame to clear out some blockers, especially if, like you said, Sheldon, Kitchen Finks hits the battlefield.
Yeah, that seems like, and remember, Pillar of Flame can dome Su Ching for 2 as well.
Right. Yeah, which at this point is 20% of his life total.
There's the Shinka, which Su Ching, of course, has to read.
Like us and most people at home, I think, has to pick up and read. He can give Vendilion Click first strike.
I'm willing to bet there are Commander players out there saying, I know what that Shinka does.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Run that guy all the time.
All right, now Snapcaster Mage, a huge top deck for Su Ching right now. Can rebuy the Oust, which I think you might even want to do. Frank laughing.
So we saw Frank Karsten give the curses hands to Su Ching after he saw the tech edge.
So I think you oust the Harbinger right here. It's kind of a dead draw, and you want to get your Snapcaster Mage on the board anyway. So, yeah, that's... Oh, okay. Right. Oust Restoration Angel and reset it. That's probably a way better play, honestly.
Okay, 13?
And gaining his own life. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's roughly 100 times better than whatever it was I was saying.
All right, Frank's draw was that another land?
Yeah, another mountain for Frank in this game is.
Actually, I think it was the Spire.
Oh, it was what kind of Spire?
The Teetering Spire.
Oh, or Teetering Peaks.
Or Teetering Peaks, yeah.
Oh.
Spire, Peaks, they're all at the top.
Hey, Teeter, they're just undulating around somewhere. Okay, well, Frank can sneak through some damage right here. Pillar Flame plus Teetering Peaks. Or no, okay, he opts not to remove the blocker and attack, but to get rid of the Vendilion Click, which is going to be eating away at his life total. Oh, wow. Wall of Omen's devastating here. Draws him right into the Restoration Angel that he wants to pair with the Wall of Omens.
Right.
So, kind of brutal
Boom.
for Frank at
Let's
this
draw
point.
a card. Hey, look at that. It's Restoration Angel.
Which Frank knows. So no illusions being held right now at the savagery that is about to take place.
Yeah, Frank's really going to feel like he's... Smoldering Spires is the land.
Smoldering Spires, really? Your guy can't block land? Yet another land for Frank. Just a really bad draw.
Was that a Scalding Tarn?
I think so.
A Scalding Tarn.
That's a tarn.
He can crack it so that he shuffles away the dead draw, the next dead draw.
No,
because he didn't put it on. Right.
That would have been true had the Harbinger gotten ousted.
Yeah, I think Su Ching Kuo kind of firmly in control here.
Very much so.
Restoration Angel's going to come in. Flash Wall of Omens. I'm going to draw a card. Thank you very much.
Oh, of course. roughly 1 million cards in Sushing's hand relative to Frank's dead draws of land Smoldering Spires.
And certainly a better dude on the board.
Yeah, right. Several better dudes. And it looks like it's Celestial Colonnade time, as it were. This is going to be a lot of damage in the air.
Yeah,
for
Sushing pretty sure that Frank can't kill him from here.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We're going to see 7 points of damage in the air for Sushing.
Right.
That represents a 3-turn clock, given that Frank's at 21.
Down 14, so he's only got 2 touchdowns left.
All right, we see a Stagger Shock. That could get rid of Snapcaster if he wanted to. Also can deal 4 points of damage. Can't deal 4 points of damage at once, though. So the Restoration Angel and the Colonnade still able to beat down for plenty of damage. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Yep.
There's 7.
6.
All right, and Sushing with a loaded hand right now. A couple of counters on the Calciform pools, so Raman's still up if Frank had some bananas 8-mana spell. Really
Insurrection kill you.
Yeah, Insurrection. For another shout out to the Commander players. You don't see a lot of games that look like this.
Well, this is, again, we have to give props. Well, there's Forked Bolt. We have to give mad props to Frank Karsten for this deck.
Right, so we see a Stagger Shock. Sushing trying to decide if he wants to do anything. 2 really awkward Dismembers in his hand, but pretty commanding board presence aside from that.
So Karsten 7, quote at 13.
And yeah, I mean, you've got to be thinking something's up if someone's dealing 2 damage to your 4 toughness creature. You have to know that something else is on its way. But really just, it gets hit with a Remand.
Puts it back in his hand, draws a card.
Frank says, sure, and is probably just going to cast it yet again.
Yep.
Do it again.
Do it again.
Okay. Fetch. 5.
Fetch.
Yet another mountain out of the deck. Not a whole lot of lands left in Frank's deck after this, but not a lot he can really draw to either, it doesn't look like. Lonely-looking Flamekin Harbinger.
Yeah, I think I heard Frank say 5 on his life, and we have 6 on the board.
2 for Angel.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure where he would have gotten the extra damage from. Well, he just cracked the fetch.
Oh, okay, that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Makes sense. Yeah, the Scalding
5.
Tarn deals him an additional damage.
End of turn. Tap off. What?
All right.
Sushing verifying that Frank is tapped out. Plays the Dismember. Frank Karsten extends the hand. Sushing Quo takes down the Hall of Famer. 2 games to 1. Interesting deck from Frank Karsten. Solid play from Sushing Quo.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I have to admire Sushing Quo just sort of sticking with the deck that got him to the victory at the World Magic Cup. He really pioneered that deck. It's sort of his signature machine, and with a few key innovations, I love the Wall of Omens. The Oust proved very decisive that game, so he clearly knows his deck and he knows how to play it, and he's rewarded with a win in this match.
Yeah, that's good Magic, and you can see while he's kind of on a heater, so
all one-offs.
we're probably going to see a lot more of him this weekend.
I think so.
Omen. Singleton deck.
All right, here we are back in the booth. I'm Sheldon Menery. He's Zach Hill. You can follow us both on Twitter. I'm at Sheldon Menery, and he's ZDCH, or as Rich Hagon would say, ZD.
I've already made enough fun of Rich's Britishisms on camera today, so I'll let that one slide this time.
So Hot Magic. We got to see some some Jun matchups
Yep.
early on. Then we got to see that innovative deck from Frank Karsten. Had you talked to him about that deck? I mean, I'm wondering why the singleton nature of the deck.
Oh, well, so something Frank did, like, totally just because it was good for a long time was have sideboards composed of 15 singletons.
Sure.
Because, you know, it lets you tailor your deck and customize it more sort of granularly in different situations. But I think Frank just kind of wanted to show up to the event. I think he was going to Grand Prix San Jose anyway.
He was there.
And was just like, all right, well, I'm qualified. Most of these cards are good. He doesn't really have as much time to play test anymore. And so I think he kind of just wanted to have fun with it. And, you know, again, none of the cards are bad, and your opponent can't play around it. So, totally reasonable choice to me.
All right. We are done with round 5 action here at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica. You're gonna stay in the booth. I'm gonna step out. Marshall Sutcliffe will be back in here for round 6 with you. Until then, back to the news desk.